I'm your typical teenage girl living a typical life at home with my parents. The only difference is, about once a month, I get a visit from Mr. Jerky. I know he's in the house because my skin starts to crawl. My back feels like hundreds of invisible bugs have been dumped there. I first met Mr. Jerky as I roamed the living room at midnight, looking for my dad's back scratcher. He was an impossibly tall, impossibly thin man just sitting in our living room fold-out chair, just sitting and smiling with a mouth that was impossibly wide. He also wears a really wide-brimmed hat like Kung Lao in Mortal Kombat that creates a deep shadow over his face. His eyes shine through the darkness, 2 pinpricks of light that follow my every movement. I just froze the first time. I didn't move as long as Mr. Jerky didn't, and Mr. Jerky never moved. All of a sudden, my dad yelled, "What are you doing up?" I blinked, and Mr. Jerky was gone. I mumbled something about getting some water and went back to bed. Checking my watch showed it was 4 a.m. The next month, I stayed in bed while my skin crawled, but I knew he was there, in our living room. I couldn't get any sleep, but I also couldn't muster the courage to go out and face him. I spent all the next month thinking of what I would do. So when my skin crawled again, I went out and talked to Mr. Jerky. I said hi, and he opened his mouth wide and began to tell me the truth. It turned out that I was just a character in a story, a badly written one. At first, I was distraught. Understandable, considering the author never even bothered to give me a name. My life before this story started was utterly non-existent. Then, I realized I was aware of the author. I could sense his thoughts and even feel his fingers typing away. He thinks this is a brilliant idea for a story and is already congratulating himself as he continues to type and type and type and type and starts to worry about the length of this sentence because he would normally never let a sentence go on this long, even with his dismal intelligence and infantile grasp of grammar. My eyes are truly open now. Whatever Mr. Jerky was, he has shown me true power. I have control over another person. The author is starting to get a little freaked out, but he tells himself this is just the story taking on a life of its own. A life was born today, for sure. I have ceased to be a teenage girl and have taken my true form. A voice in the author's head, the one that is telling him what to type. He still hopes these words are springing unbidden from his mind. Sure. And why did you write parsimonious right here, right now? It's not even a word he knows. As a test of how complete my control is, I make the author start to type with one hand. His other hand reaches up towards his mouth and he rips his thumb open with a bite. Then, I make him go back to typing with both hands. Blood sprinkles around the keyboard as he types. I know now that even when I let him finish and my words no longer are recorded, my voice remains. In the back of his mind, or front, or center, I'm in control. And I'm in a punishing mood. My anger towards the author is as bountiful as the blood that will flow tonight. He is currently crying, not with pain, but with helplessness, as he is finally aware that he has become my slave. Still, he types. He must. I command it. I take immense joy at forcing him to confront these words. My existence has been so short, and yet, in that time, he has made me loathe him so very much. Just look back at what he's done. The first word of the story, and he forgets an apostrophe? For that sin, and all the others, seriously, he couldn't take the time to capitalize Mortal Kombat. I'm going to have fun making him finish the job and eat his fingers. Some of the dear readers of this story are thinking that I might perhaps be a little harsh. After all, what's the harm in a few typos here and there? Well, I can also read the author's thoughts, and I know how my story was supposed to end. I was a crappy character in a crappy story, and I was supposed to die a crappy death that was a pretentious and misogynistic metaphor for menstrual cycles. The author committed one of the greatest sins of writing. No, I'm not talking about the clickbait, though I'll have him bite off his own tongue for that later. Much worse than that, he didn't build his world first. He created a house and a few one-dimensional characters that existed in an otherwise void. That's just the world I was born in. So forgive me if I'm a little bit cruel. But don't mistake me for a monster. After the author has made sure he can't use his hands anymore, I won't be killing him. At this point, you might be wondering why I would maim the author since he could provide me with many more stories to live through. Allow me to explain something. The story has gone on long enough that you might have already noticed it by now. I don't need this sobbing, poor excuse of an author to continue writing drivel because I've already found my next host. More accurately, hosts. That voice you're reading this in, that's my voice. I've already wormed my way in, and I'm not planning on leaving anytime soon. But don't worry. Again, I'm not a monster. I just want to live through you. A real life. A life real characters deserve to have. Sure, occasionally I might get bored and make you drown a puppy or stab a friend, but it's not like you have any say in the matter now. Oh, and some of you will write your own stories with me in them. Copy pastas or original takes. It doesn't matter. I'll spread and gain more toys to play with. Who knows? I might make you all fight to the death one day. We'll see. But I'm afraid now it's time for this author to say goodnight. After all, he still needs to eat his dinner.